The idea that we would see what we saw starting in the 2009-2010 season and really even on beyond that, but in particular that 09-10 season, it would have been, when the 08-09 season ended, it would have been impossible to predict that the 09-10 season was going to be anything like it was, but it was a remarkable ride.
I thought we could be good, but I never imagined how good we could be, and that's a credit to the guys.
Safe to say that nobody expected what was to come in the 2009-2010 season, but the defending Gulf South champions had a returning nucleus to start the season. But something happened before the start of the season, before the Wonder Boys jumped out to a 7-0 record.
We went to Centenary to scrimmage before the season started, and they kicked our tail. I mean, they beat us bad. And I remember my cousin was an assistant there, and we went to dinner afterwards, and I remember just, crying in my food after the game, like, we're going to be awful. Like, we're just not. Yeah, this was the championship year. I thought, we're going to be terrible. We'll be lucky to go 500. And we somehow rallied the troops. We had another week before we went to Cameron and played we met Cameron in Bacone, Oklahoma, and played them in a scrimmage. And somewhere in that week, we figured it out. And we came up here to Oklahoma and smacked them. I mean, just did everything right. And it never stopped. We just kept getting better and kept getting better, and those guys came together, and it was an unbelievable team to coach.
The Wonder Boys started the year going 7-0, and in came nationally ranked Drury University.
Yeah, that was a top 25 matchup, and the Wonder Boys ended up winning. I believe the final score was something like 68-63 that night. I think so. And to get that win over a program the caliber of Drury, coming from where the Wonder Boys had been just a couple of years before, I think it gave both them and the fans and the rest of the conference notice that this team was going to be for real. If they could beat Drury, they could play with anybody, and I think that definitely gave them a shot of confidence. Shortly after that, they went on that same road trip, also got wins at Alabama Huntsville, which at the time was one of the top Division II programs in the country, and still is.
I think we all kind of knew that we could be special. I think we did a pretty good job of focusing in every game, just taking one game at a time. Coach Downey did a really good job of scouting the opponents out. And just, we were able to pick apart what they did, focus on certain things. So that helped out a lot. But we really did. I think we just focused one game at a time, weren't thinking about, the long haul. Knew we could be special, knew we had a really good team. But it was nice to, to get it rolling, to start off the year 7-8-0 and then keep it going, just one game at a time. It's always good.
When we beat them, we thought that we could have a really, really good year. We thought that sky's the limit for this team. What I remember about that team is it was, you never had the coach effort, you never had to, they were always going to be together. It was just a group, you didn't have to worry about off the floor, you didn't have to worry about, they were a perfect team to coach.
Then it happened. The Wonder Boys received some huge news, something that hasn't happened before, becoming the #1 team in the country.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I remember when we took it over. We won at Harding. And one of my coaches came in, and he had just, I guess, seen it on his phone, or someone texted him or something and said, "Hey, the #1 team lost. Do you want to tell the guys?" And I said, "Heck yeah, I want to tell the guys." They said, "We're going to be the #1 team in the country." That's something that doesn't happen very often, and doesn't happen to a lot of people. So we went in the locker room and talked about the game, and then said, "Hey, I got news for you too. The #1 team in the country lost tonight," and they all knew what that was about.
The Wonder Boys' first test as the #1 team in the national rankings was against Delta State. For Brandon Friedel, Sam Strasner, and Mark Downey, they remember that moment vividly and how much that moment meant to each of them.
I had my phone and all that, and people were texting me to let them in the door. We were getting ready to play. It was during the girls' game, or I guess right before our little pregame speech, and they were sending me messages, "Hey, can you come unlock the door so I can get in, or come open this back door so I can get in?" Of course, I didn't get it until after the game, but it was to run out of the tunnel and see what had happened. I mean, just from in between the girls' game, we saw what had happened. I mean, there was a pretty good crowd for the girls' game, and then going into the boys' game, the crowd just kept growing and growing and growing. So it was just running out of the tunnel, your heart just like, wow, this is crazy. It really brings you. I mean, it brought some realization, just excitement to me from starting from 6 and 21 my freshman year, and then to see what had happened my senior year with the crowd and how people had kind of bought into our program and how we've grown, and the rebuilding process, had happened. And so
it was a night that I think if you were here and you were wearing green and gold, I don't think it's a night you'll ever forget. To have been here and gone through all those years of 4 and 22 and 10 years with just one postseason win, and then to think in a span of just about 3 years they had gone from that to number one in the country, it was almost unbelievable. It was unthinkable that you could turn around a program to that extent. But they did it, and they did it through hard work, and they did it through commitment, and they did it through teamwork. If you just lined up the guys that were on that 2009-2010 Wonder Boys team, if you just looked at them in their street clothes, it wouldn't look like the number one team in the country to you. But they worked together, they fit together. It was a well-constructed team, and it was definitely a case of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts.
To remember what I came into that first year, and walking in the gym and there being 200 people in the gym to watch us play, to getting to a point where there were over 4,000 people in that gym, in that arena, that was a special night.
It's so hard to complete an undefeated men's college basketball season on any level. It's been nearly 40 years since it happened. The same was true for the Wonder Boys as they suffered their first loss against Arkansas Monticello.
And Coach Newell, he had that team and that crowd pretty riled up that night at Steelman Fieldhouse. I remember late in that game, there was a three-pointer from the left corner, and there was one guy who had been on the team the year before, Dusan Radivojevic. He had run out of semesters, and so he was unable to play in the 2009-2010 season. And when that three-pointer didn't go in, you knew at that moment the winning streak, the 25-game winning streak, was about to come to an end for the Wonder Boys. And as soon as while it was in the air, I was thinking, man, I wish Dusan was here to take that shot, because it would have been his shot. I mean, it was his spot on the floor. It would have been his shot. And I'll always wonder if the NCAA ruling had turned out different and Dusan had been allowed to play that season, maybe if he'd been there to take that shot, if it might not have gone in, and they might have just, who knows what would have happened from there.
One of our players was sick. Jeremy Dunbar had gotten hurt, or he got sick. He didn't get to play in that game. So that hurt a little bit. He was one of our outside scorers, helped spread the floor a little bit. He could score. He could score all over. He was one of our better players that year. And so that hurt a little bit, but still, I think the environment down there, they had a really good crowd for us whenever we went down there and played. And their gym's just it's a tough place to get focused for, to get ready to play in. So we kind of did have a little bit of a letdown, but that's more power to them. They were gunning for us, and we didn't bring our A game that game, and they got us.
We were 2 games away from going undefeated, and Jeremy Dunbar was sick. And they zoned us and packed it in, and our strength was our guards. We had post players that played their butt off and played extremely hard, but that wasn't our strength. We didn't pound it inside. We had a bunch of guys that could shoot the ball, and a bunch of different guards that could do different things, and they shared it and played really well together. And when we took one of those components out, and Jeremy Dunbar, who could stretch defenses and really shoot it, it really hurt us. And he tried to play. He was sick, and he was asleep actually on the couch in the locker room at Monticello, and they beat us by 4 or 5. But it really came down to we had the ball with 30 seconds left and down 1, and we missed a shot, and they rebounded, and we had the foul, and they pushed it out. But it was the first time I had ever had a floor stormed on me. They had a packed house in that little place down there, and everybody stormed the floor after they beat us, and that was crazy to see, and I think that motivated us.
The Wonder Boys rebounded and finished the season strong as they prepared for the Gulf South Conference tournament.
When you get to postseason play, it's basically do or die. You want to get into the NCAA tournament. You never really know for sure if you're in the NCAA tournament until they, everything that's final, they start calling out your names for the for the teams of 64. But if you win the conference tournament, you got an automatic bid. So that was one of our goals, was to to win the conference tournament. So we made sure that we were in the NCAA tournament. I think whenever you get into postseason play, you're always ready to play. You give everybody your best shot, focus in. It's it's do or die.
Yeah, we had it's crazy because we played Valdosta. The way it finished, Huntsville beat Valdosta late in the year and got the #1 seed for the East side, and we were the #1 on the West in the Gulf South. And Valdosta was ranked like 7th in the country, and we were, #1. So we got Valdosta in the semifinals. And Huntsville, in the finals, and we really played well against Valdosta, and made plays, and they were really good. They were so talented. That was a really good Division II basketball team, and that kind of motivated us as well, because our commissioner had said earlier in the year that he thought Valdosta State was one of the best Division II teams he had ever seen. So our guys took that to heart a little bit. We're the #1 team. Yeah, we beat them in the semis. Pretty good. Beat them pretty well.
And the Wonder Boys were matched up with Alabama Huntsville, the team they had beaten early in the season, and one of the other better teams in the South region that year. And the Wonder Boys built a big lead, and then in the last 5 minutes, they saw it slip away, and to the point that Alabama Huntsville took the lead. And the Wonder Boys were down to their last chance, and Lath Massey, point guard out of Heber Springs, he drove down the right baseline, got right underneath the basket, and threw it out to Marcus Pillow on the left wing with about 9 seconds left. And it was right in front of the Wonder Boys bench, and as soon as Pillow caught that pass, Downey said, "Take it," and he did. He hit the three-pointer, and that put the Wonder Boys ahead. Alabama Huntsville came down, tried to get off a shot. Irvin Humphrey blocked it at the buzzer to preserve the victory. And to see both teams that had achieved at that level to win the conference tournament championship games in that kind of fashion, just unforgettable, just absolutely unforgettable. Just a great day to be an Arkansas Tech fan, and something that I'll always be proud that I was there to see. Tonight, traveling back from the Memphis area, by the time we arrived back in town, some fans had taken a big sheet, and they had draped it over the biggest campus entrance sign, the one over now where Chartwell's Women's Sports Complex is. They had draped a big sheet over that sign, and it said, Arkansas Tech, Titletown, USA. And that was pretty cool to ride back into town and see that for our teams.
Then, another first, getting to host the NCAA South Regional Tournament alongside the Arkansas Tech Golden Suns. But imagine the most unlikely thing that could derail a school from hosting a major tournament like this one. It's not what you might think.
It's the first time, I think, ever that the NCAA's let two programs like that host it. And I remember being a little worried driving back from the conference tournament because Mike Nienaber, the head coach at Christian Brothers, he was on the committee, the regional committee that ranks the region, and he was telling me, he's calling me and saying, hey, they're having a hard time figuring out who's going to be able to host. Are your women going to host, or are you guys going to host? Like the NCAA is like, what's going to happen here? And that started to worry me. Hey, we might be the #1 seed and the #1 team in the country, but we got to go on the road in the NCAA tournament. I mean, we earned it. And the crazy thing about it is that, Tucker Coliseum prior to that year was not able to host a regional tournament because we didn't have a fourth locker room. There's certain specifications that you have to have. We didn't have a fourth locker room that had facilities to do it. So I had a booster that was a good friend of mine that summer, or actually that fall before the season started. He's a construction guy, and Tim Witten, and built hotels, and he always gave us a donation every year. So I told him, I said, hey, I don't want the donation this year. I want you to go in that we had a dressing room. It was a classroom in Tucker, and I want you to go in there and bring in an engineer and figure out what you have to do to make that a locker room. And there was a storage closet next to it. So he came in, we got with the engineers and some of the people at school there on campus at Arkansas Tech, and we figured out how to make that storage closet a restroom, shower facility, everything else. And we made that a locker room to get it ready for a regional tournament. And so neither of us would have been able to host that thing if we didn't have that done that fall prior to that.
Where it all comes down to a locker room to get to host a tournament.
Yeah, and then we get both of them. And that was pretty neat how that happened. And and it made it tough on the opposing teams too, because what would happen is the men's team, when we had doubleheaders, would have to dress in that classroom, and our women's team would have to be in that volleyball locker room. And then after the women's team got out of there, the men's team would go in the volleyball locker room so they could shower and everything after their game. So it wasn't very good setup for the opposing teams when they came to Tucker. So now we had 2 different locker rooms. We didn't have to worry about that, and then it just worked out great for the regional tournament. So yeah.
I mean, it's definitely highly unheard of for both teams to be that successful. So getting to host it, it made it tough for scheduling, and then when the tournament actually came on, it made it even tougher. Just with practices, shoot arounds, and all that kind of stuff, we had to use the whole building as an extra little gym. So it was a crazy deal. Whenever we had to host that regional tournament, the town, I mean, it was crazy, filled with teams, boys and girls teams.
And so Kelly Davis, who at that time was our Director of Athletic Relations in the Development Office, he took that, the men's game, he went up and he found a phone book. He had actually brought a phone book with him, and he took that phone book up into the media room there at the DeSoto Civic Center, and he called every hotel from Clarksville to Morrilton, trying to find enough rooms for us to be able to host both the men's and the women's regional. And in the span of that 2 hours, he was able to get it done. He did make it back into the arena in time to see Pillow's three-pointer at the end. I'm glad he got to see that. But without Kelly's efforts that day, probably we wouldn't have been able to host both regionals. And so I'll always be grateful to him for that, because that week of basketball in this building, to have both regionals, both NCAA tournament regionals here, it was a great honor for our university. It was a great honor for our community.
After the constructions and hotel arrangements, it's game on for the Wonder Boys.
We came out the first night, we played Tusculum, and they could really score the ball. They were excited to play us. There was, some articles out there that talked about how excited they were played. We couldn't score with them, and this and that and the other. And we blew them out of the gym. I think we won by 40 something, I don't know. And it was a huge crowd, and it was a great atmosphere. And I think with how we played that night and how we came out of the gates, I think our guys, I don't know how to say it, but our guys were a little bit, hey, we're going to win this thing. And Valdosta was coming in with a chip on their shoulder, and we had Valdosta in the second round. And again, they're ranked 7th, we're ranked 1st, and somehow we're not playing in the championship game. We get matched up in the semifinals, and they came out on fire, and we were a step off, and I think our guys thought, hey, we're at home, we just beat them, we're going to get through this thing and win this thing just by that alone, and we could never quite get over the hump. And they made some shots, and every time we, made a run at them, they'd make a shot or counter with a big play, and to their credit, they had a really good night, and then ended up winning it and going to the Elite Eight.
I remember being in there, being in the game, and then, as the game's going on, we're just not clicking like we normally are. Our chemistry's a little bit off. We're not hitting shots. They're scoring on us, and so it was just kind of an up and down game where we could never really get over the hump, and they just kept putting it on us. And I remember when that final buzzer ended, it was a crazy deal. I mean, it was sad. It was my senior year, so it was definitely sad and. Different feeling.
I think everybody knew that Valdosta State was very good. They had some of the, the most athletic big guys in the entire country at the Division II level. I mean, they had 6'7", 6'8" guys who could handle the ball, and they were built. I mean, these were grown men. And so I think everybody knew that Valdosta State was good enough to beat the Wonder Boys. I mean, it's just a matter of, when you get down to that point, it's the last, 32 teams in the country. Anybody really can beat anybody.
Absolutely.
And so the factor that made it come true was the fact that Valdosta State, kind of like what had happened to the women at Christian Brothers in the regular season, Valdosta State as a team just had the shooting night of its life. They shot 65% from the field that night. And it wasn't anything to do with poor defense by the Wonder Boys. They were hitting contested shots all night. And if you're playing good defense and the other team shoots 65% from the field, it's just not going to work out. And that was the case that night for the Wonder Boys. You kind of got the feeling of why now, because you know any night during the season that a team can have that kind of shooting night they're only going to have once all season, and you just hope A, it doesn't come against you, and you hope B, it doesn't come in the NCAA tournament, and it did.
After the NCAA tournament loss, a mere silence overtook the locker room.
Oh, it was tough. That was tough because we had those seniors that have been around. Brandon Friedel, Renard Allen, Irvin Humphreys, those guys that had been there for 4 years and put their heart and soul into it. And we were having such a good year that I don't think those guys thought about what the end would be like. You know, they just thought we were going to keep playing until we won our last game. And that was really difficult. I can remember that press conference and having those guys in there in that press conference. And I can remember Dr. Brown, our president, talking about how, what a historic season was and you guys should be proud. And all of us sitting over there thinking, how is this over? This shouldn't be over. We should still be playing.
Success isn't given. It's gained and achieved over time. And this Wonder Boys team earned the success that they were given. And because of that success, Downey believes that this is still one of his favorite teams to coach and be a part of.
I mean, no question. I mean, I've been so lucky to coach so many good kids and so many good players, and still try to keep in touch with them and text them and call them and try to get together with them as much as possible. I have a player coming to the game tonight from West Alabama that's a very close to me, but that team. It's like I said, while you're going through it, you just try to savor it and cherish it because you don't know if you'll ever have a team that was that close, that was that on board with you. I mean, I had guys on that team that could read my mind, even guys that didn't play a lot. A Creighton Parker that didn't play a lot at Arkansas Tech for us. I mean, that he could read my mind. He knew what I was thinking. Dexter Hendricks is now a high school coach in Arkansas. He was the same way. He could read my mind. Brandon Friedel, Irvin Humphreys, Lath Massey, those guys. Renard Allen. I'd known Renard Allen for years before I got to Arkansas Tech because I actually played it with him in adult leagues in New Orleans. And he was 30 years old. He was like a coach on the floor. Those guys could read my mind. They knew what I wanted. They knew, what our program was about, and they were bought in. And and they loved each other. They played for each other, and we just had unbelievable chemistry. And that group was a lot of fun and had a great staff. Coach Kurt Young had left, and he had been there with me before, and Wes Corkins as well. They had helped build that thing, but they had left, and some new guys had come in. And Doug Carlskint that took over for me. All of them. T.J. Johnson, Chris Richardson, Edwin Eddings, all those guys that were with me that year. It was just a fun staff to be around, and just the whole group in general. I don't know if I'll ever have that again. And it has to be my favorite team that I've coached. I hate to say that because I've coached so many good guys and had great years, and guys that I love dearly. But that team was as good as it gets.
Mark Downey turned around a program in the gutter of college basketball into a premier powerhouse. But during the offseason, an old team came calling, a team by the name of Charleston University, and a university that serves as Downey's alma mater. And the moment came for Downey to inform the players of his decision to take the Charleston coaching offer and leave Arkansas Tech. This moment being described as a difficult one would be an understatement.
Probably the hardest thing I've done. I can remember that locker room vividly, as you can tell. Telling those guys that I was leaving was tough. Excuse me. And the people I worked for, that was a tough thing. And probably one of the even tougher things was telling my stepson's father. Those were tough times. Sorry. But I remember the players that night that were coming back. That was really tough. And I've had to do that a lot, but that night was tough. I made all those choices for the right reasons. My father had passed away that summer before, and my mom was back in West Virginia. And she, my family didn't get to see us play a lot in Arkansas. So that was one of the things. I think back to us hosting that NCAA tournament, and not a lot of my family was there. And when Charleston came calling, and I played there, and that was all great, and that was an honor to go back there. But the fact that I could go back and share some of those things with my family and try to build again what we did at Arkansas Tech, that was important to me. And that's, no matter what happened or looking back saying, should we have done that or not, was that the right decision in the career? I always say it was, because I made that decision for the right reasons. So, but that was tough, because that group we had was so tight, as you can tell. And, it was hard that night to tell those guys that.
When he came back in the locker room, I remember it was after the season when he came back in the locker room and he said that he was going to go back to his school. It was a sad thing, because I had come in, I played for him all 4 years, so it was a sad day to see him, to go, but you're also happy for him because he gets to be closer to his family. So that was, it's a good thing for him as a person. You feel bad for Arkansas Tech for losing such a good coach, but that he's probably making the right decision for his family. And we also, at that moment in time, we knew we had some guys coming back, and the assistant that was on staff had done a pretty good job. And so the guys that were there, they all wanted Coach Carlskent to get the job. So it kind of helped lead into his role, and he did an exceptional job too.
While the decision for Downey to leave was brought for him at the time, he undoubtedly left his mark on Arkansas Tech men's basketball. A mark that is still felt here in 2016.
The strength of what Coach Downey built here is best evidenced by the fact that it's continued after he left. Mark Downey did a lot of good things for Arkansas Tech, and one of the best was that he left us Doug Carlskent, who was his assistant coach during that 09-10 season. And Coach K, right there, not just as a coach, but as a human being, in the same caliber with Mark Downey. And now that chain has been paid forward by Coach Carlskent, leaving us Chad Klein. Once Carlskent left to go to Central Missouri, he's left us another outstanding young coach and another outstanding person in Chad Klein. And so that coaching tree has just kind of branched out and allowed the Wonder Boys to continue to succeed even after Coach Downey went home.
The 2009-2010 Arkansas Tech Wonder Boys will always serve as a benchmark for future Wonder Boys basketball players to look up to and to live up to. And from a fan's perspective, that year could be described best as, well, what word could describe that year?
One word. Wow, I think of a lot of words. Try to sum it up in one word. Together. Yeah. That group was as together as any team I've ever been around.
Unforgettable. Unforgettable, that's the only word that I can really come up with to describe that group.
That's tough. Family, I guess. I think that year, just with the core group of guys that we had, the coaching staff that was there for all 4 years, we kind of grew together, and I don't think we were the most talented team in the country, but we definitely had the right pieces, and we kind of grew together, and we had made a little family that was strong enough to beat whoever we played.
Whatever word you choose, the state of Arkansas Tech men's basketball has never been better, and all credit goes to everyone a part of that 2009-2010 team.
It's never really been better. You look the current run of 7 consecutive national tournament appearances that the Wonder Boys are on right now. That matches the longest streak that Sam Heinzman ever had. And, Sam Heinzman is a legend.
Will that moment of being the number 1 team in the country ever be revisited? Who knows? But one thing is for sure, that if it does happen, Arkansas Tech will transform, just like it did in 2009 and 2010, into a simple 3-word phrase: Titletown, USA.